Welcome back. As I mentioned, we have the Director of Security here. We have Eric Nunez. Well, welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Lisa. Nice to be here.
Well, in looking over your presentation, looks like you've been very busy, obviously catching up on things. The last time we had you here was for an unfortunate circumstance that happened at the church nearby. So, obviously those are a lot of things to kind of take into consideration when you're handling, almost 20,000 people in one area. It's like a city. But anyway, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
So let's start with kind of an overview. I know you have sort of a scope of all different things that you guys do in security.
Sure. I think what I wanted to share with you and your audience that, especially the ones that I highlighted in blue, the ones that are most familiar, that's on the screen and on the monitor, we have monitoring gates, field supervision, routine motor patrol, and traffic control program and security dispatch center that handles most of all the work that's done through security. The thing that people don't know about security services most of the time is that I actually oversee the operations manager for compliance.
Oh.
And as well as, I think, a guest you may be having coming up, and that's over our social services operations manager, Susan.
Yeah, no, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And so, and they actually, when you think about all three of those things, they kind of work hand in hand, because some of the issues that we have obviously appear to be sometimes a lack of compliance when it may be a social services need that they are experiencing, and we're able to put them in touch and realize that it's not just clutter, it's another issue happening, right?
Yes.
And Susan's team is able to come in and be able to make referrals and work with folks on these things.
Okay.
So, and then obviously our relationships that we have with the Sheriff's Department, who is our law enforcement jurisdiction and provides those services for us. So that's really the scope of the services. It's real brief down and dirty, as they say. But and on the next slide, I guess I wanted to show you just briefly, if you would, the kind of our functional, and that's kind of what I just told you. Here's compliance, social services, and I laid out security. I didn't a little bit clearer because this is what I think a lot of people are interested in, or they recognize with the security director of security, and that's our units, our patrol officers, our dispatchers, traffic specialists, gate ambassadors that they're very familiar with. We also do our own investigations on misconduct and things that are happening in the agency and complaints. And our coin services are the things that we see at the laundry. Folks, somebody has to go by there and pick up all that change that they use.
Oh, and is that you guys?
That's us, yeah. And it's actually a team of guys, and they're just really hardworking gentlemen, and they go out there and perform that operation, and then we do some of our field training as well.
Okay, let's go back just a little bit to kind of up to the top. So you oversee compliance, security, and social services. All right, but then you go down and you talk about all of these other types of things. So at what point, you have patrol officers, so at what point do you get together with the Sheriff's Department? Do you bring them all in, or is it just you meeting with them, or how does that work?
It depends on what the issue is. Like, we've done some training where and I'm trying to actually arrange for some of this training in the future, and it's active shooter type training. Okay. So we would have the folks from security involved in that initially, but actually this training is for non-tactical purposes, and so it's really an educational outreach, and that's going to be done with all of the staff members throughout the VMS. Village Management Services, as well as I'm hoping to bring it to our board of directors as well, so that everybody that are at those kinds of meetings where we congregate, if there's somebody disgruntled and something happens, we'll know what to do, and they'll be better trained for it.
Well, and as you, I'm sure, are aware, is that the boards are trying to come up with some sort of verbiage that will help to assist when there is somebody who might be disgruntled or unhappy with the way things are going in some of the board meetings. So I'm assuming that falls under you as well as compliance.
Yeah, we get notification of some behavioral issues, and it may be actually a violation of HOA, so compliance will get involved and start tracking that and maybe investigating that. But the Sheriff's Department, we get involved in on a routine basis just for any crimes committed in the village. They are the handling agency that do that, and sometimes they're not called right away, they call us, but we'll make sure that they're notified so that they can respond.
Okay, fantastic. And we do actually have a 24/7 phone number in which people can call, which I have to share with everybody. So of course, if somebody was to have an emergency, they can call the number that's on their screen and you'll be able to assist them. So
Perfect.
That's great. Or of course, direct them to the right location. Okay, so your next slide really just talks about, some of the things that have happened over the, your first 60 days of being director.
Right. I was asked, and I delivered a presentation about first 60 days look at, and it was mostly focused on the organization itself and the units that I'm in charge of. And I kind of revamped it for this presentation because I wanted to look at some of the things that our residents are concerned about, and things like gate access and target hardening. We see the Shepherd's Crook project from Golden Rain Foundation's almost completed. It'll be completed by next year.
Right.
But there are also the mutuals that now have to follow suit with that kind of thing and replacing that barbed wire look and aesthetically more pleasing, the Shepherd's Crook, but just as effective.
Okay.
And then one of the things that I was talking about the coin team. Well, we had 6 coin boxes that were broken into and damaged, and an unknown amount of cash was stolen as a result of that. And so we had to get those things fixed and replaced, but putting extra patrol checks on there to make sure that we keep an eye on these things, right?
Right.
One of the more serious things we saw was about a 9-day, 10-day period. We had about 8 golf carts stolen.
Wow.
And that was big news, right? Obviously, and those aren't. I mean, those are at least $15,000 type of pieces of equipment. And fortunately, we recovered 4 of them on the property, and that's something that the sheriffs are now investigating. We assisted in identifying a suspect and also detaining one, so they were able to help us with that, and they're working that case. And then, of course, the active shooter situation that we talked about last time with, the Geneva Presbyterian active shooter, because it was just, it was not only was it tragic, but so close to home. But obviously, some of the people that were injured were also members that live here.
Right.
And so that was, it's still a very, very emotional subject. Right. And we're working on that. And then increasing customer service, I believe, is something that I'd like to see happen. We know that needs to happen. It's something we have to work on every year and all the time. One of those things are responsive to calls for service, or the emails. You know how it is. We get tons of emails, but we have to respond to those, handling complaints. And one of the things we've noticed, actually, Lisa, was when we have a phone box, if you will, a message box for a specific service at the security department. If that person's gone that day, they're the one that operates that. No one's answering those things.
I see.
So we got to figure out a different system. So that we have a rollover if someone is not there, so we can respond more expeditiously. And then we're going to do an educational outpiece, I think, or outreach for compliance and complaints in general. That's something I'm working on with my manager, because people don't understand how the complaint process works.
Yeah.
And some of them are very simple, so they get done quickly, and some are very complicated and complex, and so they don't. And there's just a ton of frustration with why are these taking so long and what's happening with this. And so we want to make sure we educate our folks, and then they'll also do that self-policing where they're going out and making notifications to us and saying, hey, we know this is a violation, or we believe this is, can you handle that, right?
Right.
And then I guess overall just streamlining and refining workflow for effectiveness and efficiency, and looking at that. And that's something that I've been pretty good at throughout my career prior to coming here. And so it's something that I'm going to be continuing to do while I'm serving as a director of security.
Great. Well, making sure that the process is efficient and quick is always a good idea, because then you can get back to the residents and they will have a better understanding for sure. So that's awesome. All right, so 2023 priorities, you have quite a few here that you would like to go over.
Well, the first one is really about creating, it all begins with training our personnel to deliver better services, right? So creating that training curriculum to address just uniformity issues, standard operating procedures, policy issues, and making sure everybody adheres to those strictly. Because one of the things that increases morale if everybody knows what the rules are and then follows them, and then it really limits or reduces our exposure to liability as an organization. And as I said, I'll perform operational reviews of divisions, all 3 divisions that I manage, and their performance, and also look at some of the budget control tools that are there or things that are available for me, the practices that I can either incorporate or change a little bit, tweak.
Okay.
Implement functional reorganization, I say where it's appropriate, and that's appropriate because you don't want to just change for change's sake.
Right.
Because then you have to rebuild, and once you figure out it doesn't work, I want to make sure we streamline the access process mostly, because then give our residents better access to us, easier access, instead of all these layers that they might have to go through right now. And there are a few.
Okay.
And then, of course, the best practices for recruitment and retention. Throughout VMS, we're all working a little bit short right now.
Yes.
And we're trying to figure out how to get people, back to work and want to work, and then keep them on board,
Right.
and keep their morale up. And then, as always, identify cost-efficient, effective ways to, I call it target harden the village perimeter and its assets. But and it's simply that is if this is the target for crooks and thieves and all kinds of other folks to look at, we want to make sure that this target is very hard for them to, penetrate and exploit.
Exactly, and that certainly is ideal. You've got a community of 20,000 people. I think we've already said that, and of course, it's like running a mini city. So you definitely need to make sure that everybody is protected because they have dues, just like most communities like this do, and they want to make sure that it is safe. So far so good. So thank you so much. We appreciate the information.
Thank you.
All right. And as I mentioned before, if you have an emergency, of course, you should always call 911. However, if you have something that is security related here in the village, you will be able to contact them 24/7 at the number on your screen. We'll be right back.